Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. SoupX, the Startup Expo, North America's premier startup conference, is March 6th and 7th, 2017, in sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Affordably priced, SoupX is a 2-day international conference featuring workshops, panels, speeches, a $50,000 startup competition, and over 100 exhibitors. For more information, go to sup-x.org. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Ammar Dayani. He's the co-founder and president at StockJocks. Ammar, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I actually found out about you guys through Dragon's Den. And for people that don't know what that is, that's basically like the Canadian version of Shark Tank. So, you know, I thought what you guys were doing is really innovative and really cool. But maybe before we kind of get into what exactly StockJocks is, let's start off with getting to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Ammar Dayani. I live in Toronto. I grew up in Scarborough, and I just love the big city life. I went to Dr. Norman Bethune Collegiate, and that's where I met my two best friends in grade 9, who are now my business partners.
Really?
So I've known them for about 12 years now. So it's been a long time. When we graduated from high school, we actually went our separate ways. I went to Western, and they went to York and U of T, respectively. Okay. And it didn't really take away from our friendship. We still kept in touch. We had our WhatsApp groups where we would pretty much talk to each other and talk shit about fantasy all the time and all that. So we would always keep in touch. And then when I would come back to Toronto for the summer, when I was done school, we would hang out all the time. And then just last spring actually, we all graduated, and we were just ironically sitting at a Boston Pizza, and we were watching the Raptors game, and the idea just came up right as we were watching, because I remember we had Kyle Lowry on our fantasy team, and he actually left the game because he tweaked like his hamstring or something.
Okay.
And he was on my fantasy team, and I was just like, man, like, can't believe he's gone. Like, I wish I could just drop him and just pick up Corey Joseph, because now he's going to be playing in the game.
Sure.
So that's when pretty much the light bulb went off, and we were like, hey, what if you could do that? What if you could pick and drop players while the game was going on? So we did our due diligence, and then we saw that no one pretty much took traditional fantasy and daily fantasy to the next level. So we saw that fantasy originated with platforms like traditional fantasy, like Yahoo, for example.
Sure.
And then from there, it went to daily fantasy, like DraftKings and FanDuel, and everyone pretty much just started replicating that model. No one actually took it to the next level. So we thought, why don't we do that? No one's doing it. I think we have the right team. We all bring something unique and something different to the table. So we were able to actually execute. And you know what? I tell people all the time, like, I think we'd be foolish to think that we were the first ones that thought of this idea. Mm-hmm. But I mean, thinking of an idea is one thing, but execution is key. So we were just extremely proud of ourselves that we were able to execute and pretty much introduce live fantasy sports to the world.
Sure. So before we kind of get a little bit deeper into exactly what your platform is, for people that don't know, what is kind of fantasy sports?
So fantasy sports is pretty much a generic term now. So pretty much you build a team of players from different teams. Okay. So you're pretty much selecting players and formulating your own team, but those players don't have to be on the same real team. And then you compete with your virtual team against other virtual teams. And these virtual teams are called fantasy teams.
Got you. And traditionally, just for the listener, is it like you compete with your friends, or is it strangers, or both?
So you can do both. So traditionally, when how traditional fantasy sports started was you join a fantasy draft, and then whether it may be with your friends in a private pool or with strangers in a public pool, it's totally up to you. And then you draft a team, and then that team is yours for the whole season. So you're stuck with that team no matter what.
Right.
So, and I think this is the problem that daily fantasy sports solve. Whereas if just take Steph Curry, for example, if you had Steph Curry on your fantasy team for the whole season, and God forbid, let's say he breaks his leg in his first game,
sure,
and he's out for the season, your fantasy team is now screwed.
Right.
You just lost your first overall pick, and you're probably not going to do well anymore, right?
Sure.
And that's the problem we feel that the DFS platform solved. Whereas now you can have Steph Curry on your team, but now you only have him on your team for the day. But then we still thought of that as a problem, because let's say I am playing DraftKings and I drafted Steph Curry. Once again, the same thing could happen. Let's say he breaks his leg and he's out for the game. Now my DFS lineup is going to go to crap, because now I spend most of my budget on Steph Curry and he left the game and I can't do anything about it. So it solved the problem that you don't have to stick with your team for the whole season, but injuries can still happen. Players can still be inefficient, and the lineups are still locked. So we still saw that as a problem, and that's why we introduced the live in-game picking and dropping.
Yeah, so kind of walk me through how that kind of works. Like when you guys were on Dragon's Den pitching, you guys you did a demo of it, but for the listener, how does that real-time kind of in-game work?
So I can just maybe introduce like the gameplay.
Sure.
Pretty much, the gameplay is almost like you join a contest. Once you join the contest, you get $50,000, what we call virtual StockJock dollars.
Okay.
And then with that $50,000, you then pick players that you think will do well.
Okay.
And player prices are actually based on player averages. So
like they're real player averages?
Exactly, they're real player averages. So the best player isn't necessarily the best player to pick in StockJocks, because they're essentially competing against themselves. So if you take Steph Curry, for example, let's say he averages 30 points a game. So for his price to increase, he would have to score more than 30 points that game. So he could score, let's say, 25 points, which is still a great game.
Sure.
But he's not exceeding his averages, so his price will actually drop. And then on the other hand, if you take someone like Corey Joseph, who's averaging 8 to 10 points a game, but let's say he has a really great game and he scores 20 points, his price is going to skyrocket, because now he very much so exceeded his averages.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. So now in StockJocks, you can pick and drop players as the game is going on. So if you have Kyle Lowry and then he subs off and then Corey Joseph comes on, you can sell Kyle Lowry and then buy Corey Joseph while the game is going on. So you have total control, total freedom of your lineup, and that's what we're trying to offer fantasy sports users, that total freedom, total control.
Got you. And you guys also do multi-sport. How is that different than kind of traditional fantasy?
So currently, if you are to play fantasy sports, you can only play fantasy football or only fantasy hockey or fantasy basketball, whatever it may be. You're only allowed to play one sport. So what we've introduced is our multi-sport market, where now you can pick and drop players from all major North American sports in the same pool. So imagine having Tom Brady, LeBron James, and Sidney Crosby all in the same pool.
Sure.
So now you just see this big market of players from all these sports, and we pretty much created the ultimate game for an avid fantasy sports fan.
Sure. No, that's great. And you guys also have cash prizes. How is that similar to different than current fantasy?
So that's that's the part that's the same as daily fantasy sports.
Okay.
So when you join a contest, it has an entry fee. You pay the entry fee, and then you join the contest. And at the end of the contest, whoever has the most profit wins the contest prize.
Okay. That makes sense. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. You're on Android and iOS currently.
Mm-hmm.
Are you adding a web version, or do you have a web version of the platform?
We are going to add a web version hopefully in 2017.
Okay.
The only main reason why we haven't made it our top priority is because of the live aspect of our game. You have to realize that when people are playing this game, they might be at a bar or at a friend's house. So they don't have their laptop on them all the time, right? Whereas you have your phone on you everywhere you go. So that live aspect is very appealing to the mobile side of the market. But we definitely do understand that there is a need for this to be on desktop as well. But like I said, it's not our top priority, but we will be implementing that into our platform in 2017.
Sure. But I think that's actually a really, really good advice that you guys basically, you need one eventually, but you don't need it right out of the gate because, like you mentioned, people are at the bar. And it's just funny that you came up with the idea for Boston Pizza. And people that don't know Dragon's Den, like Jim, one of the guys that's actually on Dragon's Den, like owns Boston Pizza, or he's the chairman or something. So that's why I laughed. I was like, people probably didn't realize why I laughed, but like that's the connection. But like, you're right. So you guys are sitting in the bar, you have your phone. Your chances are like 99% of the time you don't have your laptop with you. So it totally makes sense.
Exactly.
And I love that about kind of how you guys are building the platform, right? So I'm curious then, when you guys, so you're in BPs, you're coming up with this idea, you guys did your research. So what made you decide, like, guys, we should really just build this because it's not out there?
Yeah, so the main reason for it was, to be completely honest, we wanted to work together. I mean, we're all guys that we were sort of in the corporate world working for someone else.
Okay.
I mean, it was fine. We were all earning respective salaries and everything, but we really, really wanted to work for ourselves. We wanted to work together just because we grew up together, and we always had a dream that one day we will just stop what we're doing and do our own thing.
Okay.
So that was one of the main reasons, and the second reason was just because we love fantasy sports.
Gotcha.
We've all three of us have been playing sports for about 10 years now.
Oh wow.
So collectively we have 30 years of experience. But those are the main two reasons. I mean, we just wanted to be our own bosses and do what we love, and we love sports and fantasy sports. And now my job is pretty much to watch sports, so you can't really go wrong with that, right?
You get paid to do that?
Pretty much.
That's awesome. So did you guys walk me through kind of building the first version of this? Did you guys kind of self-fund this? How did you get version 1 kind of built? So
we're extremely fully self-financed. We've been bootstrapping to this day still. I mean, version 1 was probably the toughest, probably had the most obstacles that we had to cross, mainly because the secret sauce, which is our algorithm, that was something that we worked on for a really long time. We pretty much were testing it every single day, and every single day we'd be changing it just because it didn't make sense, and we couldn't really build the product until the algorithm made sense.
Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Was it one of the three of you coding the algorithm, or all three, or did you have to outsource that to somebody?
Yes, it was my partner Ruan. He's our CTO, so he's a genius behind the creation of the algorithm. So then once that was done, we were able to work with our developer comprehensively. Pretty much, we had an idea as to how we wanted the app to look. Just because we have that whole stock market branding.
Gotcha.
So we wanted to pretty much pop out of the page when someone sees a picture of it or an ad on Facebook. We want them to be like, "Whoa, what is this?
Sure.
This looks like a stock market, and it has LeBron James picture on it, right? So we wanted the branding to be on point. So funny story, and you can give me your honest opinion.
Sure.
When we first started,
Yeah.
we were actually called Venture Sports.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I didn't like that name, so I said, why don't we change it to something that has to do with like sports and the stock market? So then we changed our name legally to the Sports Exchange.
Okay. Interesting.
And then we thought it was too big of a mouthful. And when we were actually the Sports Exchange, we came up with like a ranking system where we were like, okay, so the people that are really, really good at this game, we'll call them StockJocks.
Interesting.
And then we just kept talking and discussing like the name, because we were like, wait, is the Sports Exchange too long? And we were like, what if we change it to StockJocks? It's pretty catchy.
Very much so. I really like it, actually.
So then we changed to StockJocks, and pretty much we love the name, and everyone we speak to is like, cool name, cool branding. Like, I won't forget it.
Sure.
So yeah, I just wanted to ask you, what was your favorite name out of those three?
I definitely would say StockJocks for sure.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, me too.
The other thing that I find interesting about that is I think like what I like is like when people tell kind of like the real struggles of this stuff, right? Like you guys, you mentioned you had to tweak your algorithm a bunch, and like until you figured out that, you can't really build the rest of this. You went through some name changes. You know, you understood why you went just kind of Android and iOS before a web version. You also decided to kind of make it look more like a stock market type app than maybe a traditional kind of fantasy app. I love those choices, right? And sometimes when you're making those, you don't really know if those are the correct things to do, right? It's a little bit of a stab in the dark and trial and error.
For sure. And I mean, you have to realize that the three founding partners were new university grads. We're only 25 years old. It's our first time growing a business.
Sure.
So this is why we went on Dragon's Den, because we want to scale this business, but we don't have experience doing that. So we need someone that has that experience.
Yep.
And we feel like Jim and Michelle were the perfect partners for us. So we're extremely excited to get started working with them. Sure.
So obviously, like for this show airs in America, and probably there's some Americans that have never heard of Dragon's Den, but just again to reiterate, Dragon's Den is like the Canadian version of Shark Tank. It's basically the exact same thing. It's just they have like Canadian investors, and actually a couple of the guys that are actually like Kevin O'Leary and what's the other name? Robert
Hershevek.
Yeah, they're actually on Dragon's Den, or they were on Dragon's Den before they were on Shark Tank. Just for the listeners out there. So I'm curious though, and I've had a few other people on the show that have been on Shark Tank. How is being on a show that airs internationally, has it helped, hindered, not really done anything for you guys yet? I'm curious to know kind of how that effect has helped you guys or not helped you guys yet.
So being on national TV is always a good thing.
Sure. Okay. I kind of figured.
Start off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much what happened was we actually launched in March.
Okay.
And then
of 2016?
Dragon's Den of 2016.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
So in April, we were notified that Dragon's Den was coming to Toronto to hold auditions. And at this point, I had like a couple other friends who were doing their own startups. And then they got in touch with me and were like, hey, Ammar, like, we're going to go audition for Dragon's Den. Do you want to come? And I thought about it a little bit, but then I was like, no, you know what? It's too early. We don't have that many users. We just launched. Don't know if it's the right step for us at this moment. So then I actually said no. And then one day before, I had a last second change of heart. And I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose.
Sure.
If anything, it'll be a good experience pitching to the producers, because that's who you pitch to for the auditions.
Right.
So we went and we started doing the pitch, and the producer actually stopped us mid-pitch, and he was like, wow, I need to download this right now. So he took out his phone and he downloaded it.
That's hilarious. That's awesome, though.
So, yeah, so that was really cool. Like, we were just staring at each other, and we were like, okay, so I guess this went well.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And then 2 days later, we get an email saying, Ammar, Ruwan, Nader, you guys will be filming for Dragon's Den on May 15th. and we're
Nice.
just like, holy shit. So now
Sure.
we have 1 month. We have 1 month to pretty much perfect our pitch and come up with a creative presentation. Because what we were told was that just because you film for Dragon's Den doesn't mean that it'll air on national TV.
Yeah, it's the same for
Just
Shark
because,
Tank.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it has to be creative because at the end of the day, it's a TV show,
Yeah.
and they care about views, and that's fair enough because they are a TV show. So then we started thinking about how we wanted to do the presentation, and we were like, why don't we bring in a basketball net, and we'll take some shots, and then we'll show the prices changing on the app.
Sure.
And
great.
then we thought, hey, wouldn't it be better if we were to somehow, this might be a long shot, but somehow bring an athlete onto the show, because there's never been one on the show. And I'm
Sure.
pretty sure if we bring one on the show, then we'll air.
Yeah, totally.
So then I got onto, I went on Instagram.
Okay.
And I started messaging athletes. I started DMing athletes.
Really?
And one of the athletes I direct messaged was Nick Stauskas, because I'm actually a fan of his. I used to watch him when he was at Michigan State. I know he's from Mississauga, which is very, very close to Toronto. So
Sure.
he spends his summers here. So I messaged him and told him a little bit about the business. I told him about Dragon's Den, and I think, like, I thought that he might be interested because he also has his own hot sauce business. So he's a business-minded guy.
Sure.
And then a couple hours later, he messages me back, and he's like, hey, sick idea. I love the show. I've been watching it for years and years. I would love to be involved. Here's my manager's number.
Really?
Yeah, so that was
Just
crazy.
cold
So then I got
DM'd him on Instagram. I love
Exactly.
that, man. I love it.
It really goes down in the DMs, doesn't it?
Totally. No, hey,
So,
that's
so
amazing.
that was crazy. So then I got in touch with his manager, and pretty much we were speaking every single day because he's asking me specific questions, because he had to make sure that it was okay with the Philadelphia 76ers,
Oh, sure.
the NBA Players Association, the NBA League Office. He had to get approval from all of them.
Okay.
And
Did
he
that?
got the AOK from all of them, and it went from actually being a one-time endorsement deal to a full partnership.
Really?
So when we actually first spoke, he was going to come on the show with us,
Okay.
and then we would just compensate him for his time, and then we go our separate ways, type of thing.
Okay.
But then as we started working together for the show, I saw that he could very much so add value as being a partner, and he saw the vision that we had. So he shared our vision, and he was like, "Listen, I think you guys are the real deal. Why don't we actually invest in your company and become partners?" So then we were like, "That's fantastic." I mean, and then taking Nick on the show with us, especially as a pre-revenue company, really legitimizes the idea, because when you go to the den, you have no sales, the dragons pretty much jump all over you. So, and then you see 6'7" Nick Stauskas standing right beside you, and I could say that it definitely helped.
Oh,
being there.
But the thing that I love about that, obviously, like it's going really well, and you partnered with him. But like you said earlier that you thought you were like too early to even go audition, right? And I think that's really inspiring, right? And then you're like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just gonna go do it, and we're gonna figure out how to do it. And then you just like hustled to get somebody, like to get Nick to actually come on the show and do it. And then now he's working with you. Like, that's how this stuff happens, right? And I think that's an inspiring story to people and others, right?
For sure. I mean, it was a grind. We had 1 month to pretty much get everything ready for the show, and I mean, we had many sleepless nights, but I mean, it worked out. It worked out in our favor. This is what we signed up for when we wanted to work for ourselves, right?
Sure. No,
So,
it's great, man.
I mean, it's great. I mean, it's not all. It's not that easy. Actually, it's not easy at all. But you have to pretty much grind, and you have to pretty much do what you got to do at this point.
Sure. No, I totally agree. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious then. how long did it take Nick to get kind of approval to actually appear on the show? Was it like a few days? Was it a couple of weeks? Like, just, I'm curious. I don't really I get that it's like just kind of, he needs to make sure he doesn't do anything to piss off the league and his team and whatnot. But like, was it a couple of days? Was it a kind of a long process? I guess I'm just kind of curious to know that.
It actually just took a couple of weeks, just because he needed approval from a few different parties. So like I said, like the team, the GM, the NBA league office, to make sure it was all legal.
Sure.
Just because they're like partnered with like DraftKings and FanDuel and stuff. So he just wanted to make sure that he's not pretty much breaking any clause in his contract or any other rules. But I mean, it was okay. His manager, his name is also Nick, so it gets kind of confusing sometimes.
Okay.
But he was actually doing all the communication with all these parties, and he knew it was very time sensitive, so he did it pretty quick. And we also needed confirmation, just because if he was coming, then we would do our pitch how we did it, and if he wasn't, then we'd probably have to change it up.
Right.
So we needed to know, just because it had to be flawless, and I think it went really well.
No, that's awesome. So I'm curious, and you don't have to name names, but did you hear back from anybody else that you messaged, or was it just him?
Yeah, so we did hear back from a couple other players.
Okay.
I heard back from Andrew Nicholson. I heard back from an O-lineman in the NFL. I just forgot his name.
Okay.
And then a couple other players. They messaged me back. It was just funny. Like the type of message that I got from Nick, it was just like, I knew I wanted to work with him, the way he responded. Whereas some of the other players were just like, "What is Dragon's Den?" And I was just like, "Oh my god." Okay.
Gotcha.
You're probably not the right guy to come on the show with me.
Fair enough. No, but that's awesome.
But
though,
Nick
right?
expressed, Nick expressed a lot of interest. I mean, like I said, he has his own hot sauce company, Sauce Castillo.
Right.
He's Canadian. He lives in Toronto. So all the signs were pointing up. So we were extremely ecstatic to have him on board. And still to this day, I work with his manager. We pretty much we speak at least once a week. I know he's a busy guy, but he takes time out to speak with me. He has tons of connections, so we're just trying to leverage that to pretty much grow the business at this point.
Sure. No, that's great, and I love that story. And you're right. Like, I think you brought up something that's really interesting to me, is you basically picked the right partner for the app, right? Like you could, and like, I don't mean this in a mean way towards Nick, but like, you could have maybe gotten a more famous, like LeBron James type person if you really try, like hypothetically, that everybody's heard of, whether you're a sports fan or not. But if they don't understand kind of what Dragon's Den is, if they're not kind of business mindset, if they're not maybe geographically located around you, then it doesn't really matter, because they're not going to add value other than their name. So having somebody like Nick, who's like in the league, from Toronto, business-minded, loves the show, it's just like the perfect person, right? And I think that's really good advice, because I've had kind of investors and stuff on the show, and they always say you need to really pick the people on your team, and they need to add value other than just like who they are as a person, right? Or their name or their brand. You need to find somebody that actually truly adds value to your product and your company. And you guys did that, and I think that's a really good message to iterate just to the listener, right?
Oh, I 100% agree. It's probably one of the main reasons why we even started this company.
Sure.
Just like you said, we're three guys that have different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And we add value to the company. I mean, we all know what we're doing in our respective field, and we love working together, and we feel like we're the right team. And then adding Nick to it was just it was actually unbelievable. Just so much happened in such little time that I feel like sometimes it was hard for us to take it in.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Getting that call from the producer of Dragons and saying, "Hey, you're going to be on the show." Then getting a call from Nick saying, "Hey, I want to be your partner." Then actually being in the studio filming for the show, which was absolutely surreal, especially for someone like myself and my partners who've been watching Dragons since season 1, and then to actually be on season 11.
Sure.
That was an unbelievable experience. Then getting notified in September that our show is going to air in October, and that was just fantastic. And I mean, the publicity that we got was definitely invaluable. Just being on TV, and I mean, millions of people actually watched Dragon's Den. So we were finally able to get the word out. And I mean, great things are happening, but I mean, this is still the beginning. And we're extremely excited to see what the future holds for us.
No, that's great, man. So I'm kind of curious to get back into kind of the platform a little bit.
Sure.
How do you guys plan on monetizing this?
So we have monetized.
Okay.
We just monetized in September. So pretty much it's the same monetization method as other daily fantasy sports platforms. We pretty much just take 10% of every single entry fee.
Okay.
And that's how the business makes money. And then we're also looking into other forms of monetization. So one is in-app video ads.
Okay.
So we actually did a survey for our user base, and 90% of our users said that they would watch a 1-minute video if it meant free entry to a contest.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so these
I love
are
that,
so these
though.
are yeah, so these are just stats that we could take to companies, and we could tell them, listen, 90% of our user base is saying that they would watch your ad if it was in our app, if it just meant that we let them enter a contest for free. So that's something that could add value for companies that are looking for advertisements in sports apps, for example.
Sure.
Right? So that's something that we plan on implementing pretty soon. And we're actually trying to get involved with sports bars.
Okay.
Trying to offer them an interactive way to be at the bar, pretty much. So we also did some research in terms of costs for bars. So the cost of food and drinks is going up, cost of rent is going up, the cost of wages is going up.
Yep.
So if all these things are going up, these sports bars, they need to do something different to make money. And I mean, we feel like StockJocks being in these bars could make just being at the bar more fun. Could you imagine just going to, for example, Boston Pizza, and then you have a big TV right in front of you that has our leaderboard, just displayed, and then people are asking questions like, "What is this?" Oh, now you can watch the game, and you can play StockJocks while the game is going on and earn a free beer, for example.
Sure.
So now it's valuable for us because we get a new user, and we're able to monetize that way. And it's good for the bars that are now seeing increased expenses, because now these customers are going to spend more time there and probably buy an extra appetizer or buy an extra beer or buy an extra pitcher.
Sure.
So now they can see their revenues go up too. So I mean, it's mutually beneficial. So we're always looking to pretty much offer that value elsewhere as well.
I think it would also be interesting, and I'm sure you guys have thought of this, is actually when you're live at a sporting event. I think that could be really cool too, where you're maybe competing with others that are actually live at the game too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's something we've definitely talked about. And I mean, we have the contacts in place to actually get that ball rolling as well. So we're extremely excited.
Sure. Or if like you guys got like picked up by the NFL or the whoever, right? Really, like the NBA, like it would be really cool if you guys that was running along the bottom of the score clock at the top of the stadium. Right?
Yeah,
I think that would be rad.
that'd be great.
Right? Sure.
Yeah, it's just adding value to a sports fan, right? I mean, it makes our game pretty much makes watching the game more fun, and our logo and our vision. I mean, our statement is that we want to change the way people watch sports. So we feel that I think that's something we can accomplish very soon.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'm kind of curious, and we've kind of touched on this throughout the show, other than kind of like a web platform and kind of, maybe moving into a little bit more interactive when people are out and about in bars and games and whatnot. What else are you guys kind of doing in the future that, people can look forward to in 2017?
So right now, there's a couple things in the app which are so the main thing about the app right now is that you have to be pretty much picking and dropping players as the game is going on if you want to win.
Okay.
So sometimes that gets a little bit annoying, whereas it's kind of taking away from the actual game. So that's something that we totally understand. So we're actually implementing plenty of new updates in our app in the next month and a half that are actually going to make the app way more user friendly. And you know what? I have to those that are listening that are actually StockJocks users, I would very much so like to thank you all, because we actually do have a feedback option in the app, and the feedback that we get from our users is absolutely phenomenal.
That's great.
And we're actually implementing almost all of the suggestions that we're getting.
That's amazing.
Because we want to cater to all users, right?
Sure.
So our immediate goal is to get those updates going, just so we can retain our users. And then we're actually looking to get into more sports.
Okay.
So we understand that college sports are huge, especially in the States. So college basketball, March Madness is coming up. It's creeping up upon us. So we want to get into that. And sports, just like sports like soccer, biggest sport in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, so we want to expand the amount of sports people can play, and we do look to implement that next year. I mean, just 6 months ago, we only had 2 sports.
Okay.
We only had NFL and MLB.
Okay.
So now we have all 4 North American sports. We added NHL and NHL and NFL.
Yeah.
So now we have all 4 of those. And I mean, when it gets to next summer, all we have is MLB. So by that time, we do want to have other sports implemented into the app, just so our users have that variety.
Got you. And then kind of at the university, college level as well.
Exactly.
Got you.
For
Yeah,
sure.
that makes sense. Because I obviously, like, you and I both obviously like are Canadians and live in Canada, but the thing that I find fascinating to me is, and I was just talking to a guy last week, like he went to this Alabama versus somebody last Saturday, like he's from Alabama, and he said there was over 100,000 people at like their university or college game, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong, but just that just doesn't really exist in Canada. Like, people don't really go watch kind of college or university football at that scale. Like, they do go, but like they don't get the kind of people that you get in America. But it is awesome. Or like I was down at UCLA over the summer and kind of into about a decade or so ago, and just game night, and you're on like campus at UCLA, it was crazy how
I bet that vibe and that ambiance
it was unreal.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's like an unreal vibe. It's almost a better vibe than I think for like going to see like an NFL. And people will probably hate me for saying that, but I don't know. Like, I've been to some NFL games.
People need to realize that college football and college basketball is actually bigger than the NFL and the NBA.
Really?
Which is a fact.
No, I didn't know that was actually true, but like just the vibe seemed like better. I don't know, like
in terms of fan base, it's actually bigger, which is crazy, and that's why we really want to tap into that market as well.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, man. I think that's awesome. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show. So maybe for somebody that tuned in kind of a bit later into our conversation, do you maybe want to close the show with giving kind of just a quick overview of the platform and what exactly StockJocks is, and then where people can get more information and download the app online, or the apps, I should say?
For sure. So for those of you just recently tuning in, StockJocks is the world's first live fantasy sports platform where you can pick and drop players in-game, where their prices are changing in real time based on their in-game performance. StockJocks also has a multi-sport market where you can actually pick and drop players from all sports in the same pool. And lastly, StockJocks' unique ranking system ensures fair competition. So beginners are always playing beginners, experts are always playing experts. For more information, you can visit our website at www.stockjocks.net. And if you're a Canadian listener, you can download the app on the App Store. And if you have an Android, you can actually download it off of our website, stockjocks.net. And if you're in the States or anywhere internationally, you can download it on the Play Store and the App Store.
Perfect, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. And I think maybe in the new year we should do this again and kind of catch up and see where you're at now. And I'm curious to see and kind of follow your journey through this whole thing, right? Because you guys haven't even been live less than a year, and you've accomplished so much, and I think that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I would love to be on it again, hopefully in the new year, touch base with you. And like I said, lots has happened, but this is just the beginning, and we can't wait to blow this up.
That's great, man. Well, Ammar, I really appreciate you doing this. I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.